am cherishing today, because this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. Thanks for joining me. Let's jump right into today's video on how to convert a mini companion backpack into a hip bag. The PDF pattern templates are designed to utilize each piece as much as possible. So as you can see, we have piece C1 and C2 on the same template. For piece C1, you're just going to cut the full. For piece C2, you're going to fold it under at the dashed line, and then you can use it to cut out your other. Or the actual dimensions are in the cut charts. So if it's a rectangle and you just want to use your cut chart, you can do that also. Now, we also have piece F, E, and D. Now, for F, you're going to use the full piece. For E, you're going to fold it under. And I also like to fold under these. So there you have your E. And then for D, you're going to fold it under again. And you can just fold this all up, get it out of your way. There you go. And then just cut around it. Piece A is too large to fit on one sheet. So you have your paste here line, and you can either use a glue stick and just glue them together, matching up your triangles to make a diamond. Or you can just put it together and use some tape and just tape across. Whatever your preference is. Now we're going to show you how to make your bag just a touch wider. Determine how much wider you want your bag to be, and then divide that number by 2. So I want mine to be 5 inches wider, so I'm going to divide it by 2. That leaves me 2.5. I'm going to take my fabric that I want to use, and I'm going to fold it, and along that fold, I'm going to put my 2.5 mark right here. So take it at the 2.5 mark, line it up, and then you can take your pattern piece, your paper pattern piece, fold it in half, and you're going to line it up along the edge of your ruler, and then you can cut out around that and make sure you're straight and cut all the way around. Okay, now you will do that with every single pattern piece except for your side panels. You will leave your side panels as they are. So your side panels, and then also anything to do with the pockets or anything to do with the sides, leave those alone. Do not do any difference in the measurements. It doesn't matter which pattern piece it is. You take it, you take your 2.5 inches, line it up, and then cut around the outside edge. Straight, and of course, straight. So that is how you will make a wider bag. Most of the construction is exactly the same, so this video will only be highlighting the differences. If you need to, you can pause right here for a basic breakdown of the required pattern pieces. For the hip bag version, you'll need 2 exterior side panels, no side pocket pieces. You'll need some webbing, a slide adjuster, a rectangle ring, 1 clasp set like this, 2 D-ring tabs, and then you'll need 2 pair of this type of strap connector for your sides. We'll start with putting our tabs together. What you'll do is you'll take your rectangle ring and one of your straps here and fold it in half and clip it in place. Then you'll take the female portion, put it in here, fold it over it, and clip that in place. Then you're going to take both of these to the machine and you're going to sew with an 1/8 inch seam allowance along the open edge. With these two pieces now prepared, we're going to take our side tab pieces and we're going to decide which one we want as the front. I'm going to use this more colorful one here. So with this pair, we're going to use the colorful side. We want to make sure that we have the top or right side against the right side that I'm going to use for the top. Overlap it by about a 1/2 inch, centered, and clip it in place. Then you're going to take the back piece and line it up and clip around the entire edge. Do the same for the other one. Now we're going to take both of these to the machine and we're going to sew around the side, the top, and the other side and leave this bottom open. Do that on both of these. With the perimeter sewn, we're now going to take and trim these corners. It's easier to separate them about like that and just take it off like that. Leave your webbing in place. Just take off the corners. Do not snip into your stitching. There we go. And then we're going to take off of these corners also, like this. Okay, and then we'll be turning them right side out. Just grab onto your clasp or rectangle ring and just pull it out. Then grab your, I guess, chopstick or whatever you use to push out your corners. Okay, make a nice little corner there. Repeat. And there we go. And there you go. And if you did what I did and didn't backstitch well or snipped into your stitching, you're gonna have to turn it back wrong side out and sew it back. Let's go fix it. All right, that's all fixed. Now let's turn it right side out. And it's up to you whether you want to top stitch around the perimeter there or just leave it like this. Once it's actually installed, it's not going to be too big of a deal, but I am going to go ahead and top stitch. So we're going to go top stitch. All right, with one of them now sewn, you can see what it'll look like in between and pinched with the perimeter top stitched. Here is what it would look like without being top stitched. So that would be your personal preference of which way you want to do it. Okay, now that you have top stitched around, you're going to take the clasp side first. You're going to pick one of your side panels and you're going to take the clasp side and you're going to put it along the left hand edge, about a 1/2 inch down, and you're going to line it up and clip it in place. Then you're going to take the other panel and you're going to line it up about a 1/2 inch down. And you're going to clip it in place. Then you're going to take these to the machine and you're going to baste them onto the side panels. With these side panels now prepared, we're going to put them aside. For the inside lining with a pocket, we need pieces F, D, and C. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take pieces D and C, and we're going to put them right sides together. We don't need F at the moment. So we're going to line them up along the top edge and clip them in place. Now we'll take this to the machine and we will sew with the seam allowance designated in the tutorial along the top edge. With this sewn, we want to trim the seam allowance. Careful not to snip your stitches. Turn them both right side out. And press it. Take it to the machine and top stitch along this folded edge. Now that we've top stitched along the folded edge, we're going to fold the piece C up, the front part up, find the center, and I'm going to draw a line straight down the center. After that, we're going to take our piece F, we're going to line up the little angled wings. And then we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to sew from the angled edge over and down, all the way over along the bottom. When we get to this line we drew, we're going to sew up, not getting on to piece C, all the way up and then coming back down, back over to this side, up, and back over across the angled edge. So let's take this to the machine. Okay, we have now made a double pocket right here. You can add a rivet right here if you want at the top, just to make sure that it doesn't rip out if you're putting a lot of pressure or stress on it. But as you can see, you went angled wing, over, down, over, up, and out the angled wing. So I am going to add a rivet. After I add the rivet, I'm going to baste each of these sides with an 1/8 inch seam allowance to hold them in place for when I put the side panels on. So I'm going to sew these sides and I'm going to add a rivet and I will be back. With the rivet now in place and both sides basted into place, we can set this lining piece aside. I have already prepared the lining with the zipper pocket according to the tutorial as it is written. There has already been a video tutorial done on that, so I will direct you to that tutorial and it is in the timestamps of where to find it. So I did leave this pocket open. I'm going to turn it through the front pocket and then I am going to sew that front pocket closed through this zipper pocket. So this is now prepared and we will set it aside. Now we're going to work on our flap. I have already installed one magnetic snap. The original pattern only calls for one in the center. Because I widened this bag, I'm going to put two, one on each edge. And I have also taken the opportunity to outline, to trace the seam allowance. I find it easier to sew my curves when I have the seam allowance already drawn in. So what you do first is you're going to use your little washer and you're going to put it at your marking and you're going to draw your lines and then you're going to cut your little slits for your prongs. I did use some fray check and then I'm going to put the male side through the holes I've pre-cut some Decoville Heavy and made holes in it, put it in place, put the back on, fold it over, and flatten it out. Then to cover this so there's no sharp edges, I like to use some of this Therafuse from Fabric Therapy and cover it up that way. And there we go. We have our snaps added. Just so you know approximately where I added the snaps, as you can see, I do place the snap placement on the paper pattern. What I did is I did it the same distance from top to bottom. I just found my own where I wanted it, put it from side to side. Now we're going to take our exterior piece and we are going to clip it all the way around. And then we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to sew around the curved perimeters, leaving the back here, the straight line, open. Okay, now that we've sewn around the perimeter, we're going to trim the edges. I always like to trim right here to reduce bulk. Again, be sure you don't snip into your stitches. And then you're going to trim around the curves. It's best to use pinking shears or just cut some triangles. If you don't have pinking shears, that's fine too. And then you can turn it right side out. It's always a good idea, once you've gotten all that done, to press the seams. And then you're going to take this to the machine and you're going to top stitch around the curved perimeter. Remember, the snap side is the inside. With the flap now top stitched around the perimeter, I always fold it in half and find the center mark. Then I make a little 1/8" snip right there at the center. After that, I get the upper piece, and at the bottom part, which is where it comes down, I also snip the center, and I get the back piece, and I snip the top center of that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our upper piece and our flap, and we're going to put the flap right side down with the upper piece right side up, and we're going to match up our center marks. And we're going to clip them in place. Now that we've clipped it in place, we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to baste it into place. Before I go to the machine, I also want to add a tag right here under the flap. So I'm going to take the flap here and kind of just put it out of the way. And I'm going to put this little tag here. Then I'm going to fold the flap back down and clip it in place. Now, whenever the flap is down, we're going to now have a tag right here, just like this. So I'm going to take this to the machine, and now I'm going to baste it into place. With the flap now basted into place, we're going to take our back piece. I'm going to lay it right side up, and I'm going to lay the upper panel right side down. So the snap portion will be against the right side up back piece. And we're going to clip this into place. And your sides should line up perfect. Now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to sew along this top straight edge with the seam allowance designated in your tutorial. Okay, with this top now sewn together, we're going to take the clips out. We're going to trim down the edges. Remember, do not cut into your stitching. And then we're going to fold up the upper. It's a good idea to press your seam. And then we'll take this to the machine and we will top stitch along this top edge. This will keep the flap in the downward position. With the seam allowance top stitched underneath the upper panel, we're going to set this aside. Now we're going to get out pieces C and D. With piece C right side up, you're going to take piece D and you're going to position it right side down along the top edge. And then you're going to clip it in place. Now we'll take this to the machine and we will sew it along this top edge with the seam allowance designated in the tutorial. With this edge now sewn together, we are going to flip them so that they are right sides out. And press this edge. Then we'll take it to the machine and we'll sew right along this folded edge with an 1/8 inch top stitch. All right, with this piece now top stitched along this top edge, we're going to get the flat piece back. We're going to slide this underneath the flap and we're going to line these two angled edges up. When you line it up, you will then put a clip right there to hold it in place. And then you'll do the same thing on this side. you'll notice that I kept this top part separated. And that's because we're going to turn it over this way. And this is just holding it together where we need it. To make sure that we put our snaps in the correct place on the part C, I feel right through until I feel the male portion of this snap. And I take my marking utensil and I make a dot right in the center of that snap. And I do that on both sides. Then what I'll do is I will take one of the middle portions here to mark it, put the dot that I marked right there, and make my lines so that I can put my holes in. This ensures that if you sewed your seam allowance any kind of off, then it will line up with your magnetic snap placement. So I like to do that even though the snap placement for the original mini and the flap are on the pattern pieces. So I'm going to repeat what I did for the flap to put the snaps on, and then I will be back. Okay. Now that we have installed our snaps between these two, we're going to put this back together. There we go. And these should line up perfectly right here, the angles. That's why we did it that way. And we are going to now clip it all the way around. Now we'll take it to the machine and we will sew in here and down, and then we'll sew in here and down. The pattern tells you to sew along this bottom edge also. It is sometimes easier to use this pocket as your turning hole than it is to use your zipper pocket. If you prefer to do it that way, then do not close up this bottom portion. Another option would be to leave this open, use it as your turning hole, but also leave the bottom of your zipper pocket open to close this up, because it would be easier to close this through the zipper opening than it is to turn the whole bag through the zipper opening. This is a bigger opening. So you can make the decision your own self which way you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and leave the bottom open so that I can turn through this hole. And I'm going to leave my zipper pocket open also and close this up through the zipper pocket. So we'll show you how to do that. Okay, I have now sewn the angles and the sides. And you can see what it's going to look like here. But we don't want this to move or get caught the wrong way, so we're going to keep this up here. Put a little clip to make sure it's held in place on both sides. And then we're going to take this to the machine and we're just going to sew right here from the top of here to this angled edge, just to keep that in place when we sew the sides. So it's just a basting stitch and we will be back. All right, we have now basted each side of this pocket down. And we're now done with our front panel. The next portion is constructed the same as previous tutorials. If you need assistance with those steps, please find the link in the description below and go to those timestamps. Okay, we're still following right along with the regular tutorial on finalizing the bag. One thing I have already done is sewn on the side panels. When you do this, you want to make sure that the strap piece is towards the back side of the bag. That's the only really difference, is that you now have these strap pieces. Otherwise, you are totally following along with the tutorial. The next step would be to do your 90-degree angles, turn them into a 45 right here like this, and clip it in place all the way down each side. So let me get that done, and I will show you what we're going to do before we sew. Okay, both sides of the exterior are now sewn. So what we're going to do is, if you can see that indentation there, we're going to snip on our front and back panel to relieve some of the pressure. So we just take, and I don't know if you'll be able to see, but you'll just take and snip right along. See right there on that, and it should line up evenly with that. You don't want to go too far, just right there. And we're going to do that on all 4 indentations for the side panel. That relieves the pressure. Now what you'll notice after you've done that is that you can open it up and you will have a perfectly boxed corner. And you'll open up you'll butterfly your bottom seam here. You could lay it either way, or you could open it. I prefer to open it, just for a reduced bulk in the seam allowance, and then you'll sew from there to there. And this is exactly the same as in the original tutorial. So you can watch it all being done and sewn in that tutorial, which is in the description box below. All right, we have now enclosed our side panels, both the sides and the bottoms of both the exterior and the interior. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn it right side out. Remember, we used the exterior front flap panel as our turning hole. But if you had used your zipper pocket, you could do that also. So I'm going to use this one to turn it because it is a bigger one. We can do this however we need to. We can pull the lining through first. You've got your double slip pocket in here. And then on this side, you now have your zipper pocket. Remember, this is still open. Your zipper pocket is open inside of the bag. And your slip pocket here is still open inside of the bag. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the zipper pocket here. We're going to pull through that zipper pocket, that front slip pocket. Don't be afraid to manipulate it a little bit, just to get it where you want it. And then you're just going to clip along the bottom edge. And then we'll take this to the machine and we'll sew right across this bottom edge, and we'll be back. Okay, I have closed this up, and now I'm going to stuff it back inside. And you can see it's now closed up here inside, nice and pretty seam. Okay, the only thing left to sew is this little pocket here. So we're going to follow the directions just like your regular tutorial shows. We're going to close up this pocket. Notice it angles in at the corners, and that helps there not be so much bulk whenever you push it back inside afterwards. So let's get this clipped and take it to the machine and sew it closed. And here we go. The pocket's all closed up, so all we have to do is stuff it back in. Poke out the corners so that you can make it as flat as possible inside of there. And now the only thing left is to put the strap on. Okay, now it's time to add our straps and put our strap together. So I've already put my holes in my strap, both ends, and I'm going to thread it on to my slide adjuster, going over the top so that it's right side up. I'm going to fold over this end so that we catch the inside raw edge inside of the fold. And I'm going to go ahead and put my rivets through the fold. There we go. Now I have that center bar captured in this next fold, and put your rivet through the next set of holes. Okay. With this slide adjuster up, you're going to want this to end up right side up. So you're going to slide it underneath through the hole so that you have it right side up here. This is the wrong side up, and you're going to thread it through the slide adjuster and it's going to be right side up, right side up. And then all you have left is this side. So you're going to take your bag. I turned it wrong side up, so I'm going to turn my strap wrong side up. And with it wrong side up, I'm going to thread it through the rectangle ring. Fold it like this. Put my rivet through and through the fold. And then I'm going to catch it inside, just like that. Now it should set just like this, and then attach right there in your clasp. All you have to do now is set your rivets. Those are set. And those are set. And we now have an adjustable strap hip bag.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as we enjoyed sharing it with you. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to like and share. And while you're at it, check out some of our other tutorials. We love to see your creations, so please share and tag Cherishing Today when you do. And don't forget to join our Facebook group, Cherishing Today Designs, for more inspiration.